And good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar today with members of Company Wayne McGregor, returning to San Francisco for another performance and a few days of residency activities with some of our education partners. This is Melanie Smith, President of San Francisco Performances, and glad you can join us. I'm going to introduce our artists in a moment, and we're going to ask some questions about the work that they're doing with us this week, and then you'll have the opportunity throughout the webinar to submit questions using the control panel. There's a questions pane on your control panel, and at the end of our chat, we'll choose some of those questions and ask our guests to respond. So, just to start, we have two very special guests today, Jessica Wright and James Pett, both of Company Wayne McGregor, and I'm going to read a few highlights of their bios and hope that I hold the right thing. So, Jessica joined Company Wayne McGregor in 2008. She was trained at the London Central School of Ballet, and she has performed with many companies, including the Forsyth Company, Belgique, and Flamand. And interestingly, she's also very involved in making award-winning dance films. These have been commissioned by the BBC, by the English National Ballet, and they've been shown on the BBC, on Canal TV in France, and other places, I think, in the US. And James joined Company Wayne McGregor in 2013. And he actually trained and competed as a gymnast, representing the UK as a gymnast for some time. But then he also trained as a dancer at the Trinity Laban Conservatory of Music and Dance in London. He has danced with the Richard Alston Company and also performed signature roles in revivals of several Merce Cunningham works, which is very exciting. And he also works as a model and does his own teaching and choreography somewhere in southern Italy, which I'd love to hear more about. Because who doesn't want to work in southern Italy? So thank you all for joining us. You're here today because you are our supporters and friends, and we could not do any of this without you. So jumping in to begin, so here you are, James and Jessica, back in San Francisco to perform the West Coast premiere of Wayne McGregor's newest work called Autobiography. So tell us about this work and what the audience can expect, or will they be surprised?
I think we'll all be surprised. So perhaps we can start by just giving a little bit of insight into, it's a very unique system, the way that Autobiography works. It's also very new for us, only premiered in October, so the tour is still kind of at its beginning. And basically, for this piece, Wayne had this idea. I believe he was reading a book by Merce Cunningham that was kind of quite influential throughout the process of creating material for the piece. And he kind of suddenly came in one day and said, I've got this idea. We were working on quite, individual kind of fragmented sections to a range of music. So some of it was by this composer, Jay Lynn, and some of it was originally composed for Autobiography. And some pieces of music were kind of just like out of Wayne's library, things that he loved, pieces of Baroque, Corelli, and, a real range of stuff. He kind of was working on these quite individual sections, and one day he came in and said, how do you think it would be if the show was different every night? And we were kind of like, that's never going to happen, never going to happen, never going to happen. And then, but he kind of really was keen on this idea and stuck to it. So the basic principle for the idea is obviously autobiography, and Wayne's autobiography, he had his genome sequenced as part of the lead up to the project. And so in total, there are 23 sections, representative of the 23 chromosomes, which exist. However, in any one evening of the performance, only 15 sections would be performed. And there's a computer algorithm which was created by one of the company's collaborators, Nick Rothwell, that basically, Wayne presses the button before every show, and then it kind of selects 15 sections in a completely unique order. So the first section is always the same, starts with a solo, and the last section always remains the same. But the kind of 13 sections in between are randomly selected, and even within those sections, there are further kind of selections or possibilities. So basically, no two shows are ever the same. So don't ask me what to expect for the show.
How much advance notice do you as dancers get for what you'll be performing? What the sequence is?
I mean, it gets a week or, a few days before.
think the premiere was the day of the show.
Yeah, that was hard.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really hard.
Yeah, but more recently we've been having like a week or so.
So he doesn't just press a button every night and it's different.
No, but to be completely honest, we don't really tend to kind of be able to memorize the order much before the day of the show because, you know.
Wow. That's fascinating. And you've told us a little bit about the process of creating Autobiography, but is this, I mean, Wayne's company was originally called Random Dance, so this is random, clearly. But is this piece markedly different from other work that either of you have done with them in the past?
I would say we worked a lot with sort of internal emotions, and we worked a lot with a Japanese kind of martial practice, which is called Buto as well, which is very internal and slow moving. So I think it's more earthy maybe than some of his other pieces, and a bit more, maybe more grounded. Yeah, I would say it's quite emotional as well, maybe.
Emotional?
Yeah, in some sections.
I think it's obviously difficult for us to say what an audience gets because we're so busy being in it. But I think certainly from the perspective of being part of the creation, it felt like, Wayne, obviously it's autobiography, he's asking himself personal questions, whether that's kind of genetic, scientific, emotive, personal, history, all those things. And, he didn't kind of ask us explicitly to tell our autobiography, but there was a lot of, I think a lot of the tasks that we used were kind of aimed at touching on something quite personal for each of us. So we had solos that were kind of portraits. We had things that we worked on that were maybe less kind of shape and movement oriented and more kind of sensation, body sensation oriented. We had kind of body states where Wayne asked us questions like express your bias, or what's your earliest memory, where does faith sit in your body. They're kind of quite big questions in terms of, we're quite used to working in very specific and very detailed and quite often like geometric ways with Wayne. So a lot of this, I think he was really interested in getting kind of quite personalized responses from us. So yeah,
quite an internal kind of personal exploration. Whereas the other creations I've done, sometimes he really pushes the quality, and this one just felt quite personal. I mean.
And how does that feel? Do you find when you're performing, are either of you involved in solos where this is part what you're expressing, or?
Yeah. Have some solos.
Does it pull up emotions as you're performing, or are you able, because it is so personal?
The solo section that comes to mind for me, there's a section in the piece that is called, I think it's called Not I. So the audience gets, each section is kind of titled as well. Obviously, we don't know where that'll fall in the piece, but we kind of refer to it as 7 solos because essentially the algorithm picks 7 people and it gives you a number 1 to 7. So it might be one night, you might be 3 the next night, etc. And basically, like in that solo, you have to kind of respond in real time acoustically to the music. And it's, I wouldn't say there's like loads of time for kind of self-reflection and pondering, or kind of, it's not a particularly indulgent section. The music's really fast and hard and kind of rhythmic. But I think there's something that kind of, it definitely provokes a response because you're kind of in a like fight or flight mode, and you're kind of pushed on stage without totally having the framework of the steps that you would normally have to hold on to, and it kind of forces you into, I suppose, like, you can't help but respond by really kind of presenting your own signature, because that just comes out in quite an intuitive way. So I think like when I see the solos from the others, you really see like the essence of that person. You see that person, their style, their characteristic.
Wow.
There's a few little solos I do. I mean, it's always very personal, and all the tasks we do with Wayne, it just comes from somewhere. Or a research. So I guess I would say every section or every solo that's done is emotional and somewhere. So in an essence, I guess everything is coming out. So
I think kind of what's quite interesting as well, maybe to note, is that you know, with Wayne, things go through so many different iterations. It's rarely ever I'm going to approach this from a point of view of making something from an emotional starting point and it's going to stay in that zone. Things like go through so many different iterations, so many different forms before they end up on stage. So, you know, things that might have been maybe a more personal exploration in the first place, then might come across in a completely different way once they're coupled with music. But on the other hand, you know, things that maybe started from more of a kind of outward-looking, geometric or kind of physical starting point might then, once they're coupled with music or turned into a duet or a trio or something, you know, imbued with quite a different emotional form in a way. So it's kind of, they don't always stay in that, the place that they first started from.
Right. That makes me think of Cunningham, actually, because everything was so random. You've had a lot of experience, James, with that. And yet, out of that apparent randomness, it's great emotion come from that. But in Cunningham, I mean, is that the similar kind of thing?
Yeah,
you've done that work?
Absolutely. The rawness and the three-dimensionality of Wayne's work is very kind of similar to Cunningham as well. So for me, yeah, I'm very similar.
So, speaking more broadly, outside of this particular piece, which is quite unique and exciting, I can't wait to see it tomorrow night. I have to ask, too, did either of you ever have your genome sequenced in this process? Did that make you all curious about your own DNA?
We had a trip, right?
We did. To the it was the Sanger Institute.
Yeah.
Outside of London.
We had a day there where they were like a brief kind of chat about it.
I think one of the dancers, I don't think either. I've got a feeling that Lewis actually was intrigued and got his own genome sequence. Obviously, it's kind of controversial.
Oh yeah. It's quite popular now for people to do that, or just have their DNA tested to check out their ancestry and so on. Yeah.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
No, I think he was. I think Lewis did do it actually, and found out some stuff he didn't know about his ancestry, which is quite interesting.
Quite topical. But outside of this particular work, what is it about working with Wayne and his creative process, his style, that you find particularly challenging or really exciting?
Where to start?
I mean, it just offers you so many ideas and images, and you're in an environment where I think sometimes he works a lot with speed, and for me, it allows you to go from being too much in your mind to just being in your body and moving, because you don't have the time to process and think about exactly what you're doing. You're just thrown into maybe a task or something. So that way you work primarily physically, the body just moves, and I think in that way you surprise yourself, and I think spontaneity is something I really like.
True. I'd never really thought about it like that, but it's really true actually. Like, it can be overwhelming at times because Wayne works incredibly quickly, and you know, he has like really high expectations on us as well, which is great in a way. But it really,
that pressure though kind of brings out.
It forces you to be completely present and completely in the moment, and to just give yourself up to it, because you don't have the time to kind of stand back, pull back, question. Oh, I don't know if I can do that. That's going to hurt. You just go, and that's really refreshing, because you always end up doing things you didn't think you would be able to, or you know, whether that's creatively or physically. I don't know, he's got such an amazing, I mean, we've both danced with him for quite a while now, and I think the reason for wanting to stay with him is, you know, he's endlessly curious, he's endlessly, and you just can't get bored in his presence. He's always finding something new. He's asking different questions than he was in the last process. He's asking different skills of his dancers. He's asking, and you as a result ask those different questions too, and you just, I don't know, you can't get bored, and you always feel that he's got further to take you on his journey and on your journey. He's got such an amazing way of, like, you know, even with a piece that's already been created, but looking at it again, like, you know, he looks at things with such fresh eyes every time. Sometimes he creates them, and then we don't see him for 6 months, and then when he says, "Can can I see it again? You know, he doesn't remember the minute details of it should have been like this or it should have been like that, but he certainly knows if it's got the right flow, if it's got the right intention, and when it speaks to him, when it doesn't speak to him. And he's just, he's got such a great way of like always really pulling the best out of dancers. And when you're in that situation yourself, you feel, you can just go to places that you didn't think you could before.
So that kind of ties into a question I have here. You both danced with him for many years now, and you feel that, I mean, it sounds like the answer is yes, but how you have evolved as a dancer and or choreographer through your experience of working with him? It's a huge question.
I mean, I think, I've totally grown as a dancer, but also I think as a person as well. I think you grow and you take this, and I think that's a reason why so many of his dancers stay for so long. It's very full and fruitful in the whole experience because, we work together, we tour together, basically live together almost, and you experience being away like this as well. It's a whole kind of experience. But for me, I mean, working with Wayne in an environment like that, and like Jess was saying before, right, he's so artistically curious all the time, and that openness to try inspires me, to, as I'm interested in choreography and creating my own things, it just inspires me to, there are no limits, and everyone has their own personal voice to say. So I think that he all in that.
Likewise. I think, it's almost impossible for me to kind of imagine, I've been with the company for just over 10 years now, which is kind of a crazy thought. But it's almost impossible for me to conceive of what I would be like as a dancer if it wouldn't have been with Wayne, or to kind of really imagine myself dancing in a different context now, because I don't know, it's just, you can never be bored. It's so enriching, and like even just not just even within the creation of a piece, but artistically, Wayne's always pushing boundaries. Like he's working on film, we just heard today that we're going to be doing something really exciting in fashion, something commercial, working on music videos, interrogating his own process further with scientists, and we're so lucky because we're privy to all of that as well. So you get this incredible exposure to different worlds, and sometimes it's something that you feel really hungry for, and other times you kind of feel resistant to, and you're like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for, but you kind of, but then when you get into that environment with Wayne, you can't help but trust it because he's part of it, and he helps, you're just exposed to so many great and varying things, and, especially, I think, the creative process with him as a dancer over the years, work with scientists, we've done a lot of work with neuroscientists, questioning how we create, questioning what mode we're in, kind of redefining and honing your own choreographic thinking tools, like that kind of exist in your own head and your own body. So it's not just a physical thing, but just so much constant evolution that I don't think I would be the same person even if I wouldn't have worked for Wayne. And I think, like James as well, on a personal note, my work outside of the company, even though it's completely different in genre from what Wayne does, I certainly feel like really inspired by his ambition. He's just somebody that never says, oh, that's not possible, or oh no, that's too big. He, like, whatever sometimes we're really lucky because we get to chat with him about our own stuff as well. He's incredibly generous in that respect, and mentors us, gives us ideas about how we can kind of progress in our own fields as well. And whenever you say to him, oh, I've got this idea for this, he'll kind of spin it on its head and say, well, why don't you look at it this way, and then like unfold something and look at it on a scale 20 times bigger, and you're like, but and then you recognize that kind of big view in him, and that's really inspiring to try and.
Sounds like there's a lot of mentorship as well as being a choreographer and director.
It's there if you want to.
That's wonderful.
He's very generous.
That's really wonderful.
There's a lot of opportunities as well for kind of supporting and showcasing our own work.
Speaking of mentorship and all of that, I would remind people who are logged in that you can type questions at any time, and we'll get to them in a moment. But you've been here for a couple of days. Well, you've been here all week now. It's Wednesday, but you arrived Sunday, right?
Sunday, yeah.
And you've been working with some of our San Francisco Performance's education partners in schools and other after-school organizations. It's the third time, I think, that the members of the company have done this. Is that correct? You were here last
Possibly
year.
even more than that.
Maybe more. So, do you see some of the same students, or how is that going this year? And what's that like to come here for a few years in a row and work probably with some of these same schools and programs and even students?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Literally yesterday we were at Destiny.
We were at Destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jeff.
I was there.
I
was there last year, just over a year ago. And it's actually quite rare that we go back to the same, even though the company goes back to the same groups, Line, Ballet School, or kind of certain comprehensives, or like Destiny. It's actually quite rare that you get assigned the same group, especially in such a short period of time when maybe, there will be different kids there now. But it was really great. We turned up yesterday and there was kind of about 5 or 6, all several feet taller than they were a year ago. But yeah, that was really nice.
That's great. And I mean, do you do this in other places when you tour?
I think it's good to mention maybe that Wayne has a very big creative. Everywhere we go, there's. I've been in the company about 4 years, but I've worked with every age range. We've worked with disabilities. We've worked with young children, elderly.
So that's
everything.
Yeah.
I can't that age group worked with.
Sometimes we do kind of big independent creative learning residencies. Like we had one in Aarhus this year that was just for about 2 weeks for a kind of site-specific project, kind of, on a professional level with a newly commissioned score and so on, but for residents, non-professionals in the community. And that was,
very nice.
Yeah, it was a really incredible project. And then sometimes we just do one-offs. We had a recent tour to India that was based around kind of 4 performances of a different show called Far, but with tons of creative learning work as well. So we do a lot with the company.
You do a lot all over the world. Wow.
Yeah.
And in India, that's quite a different experience than in Europe or here even. I mean, you must enjoy it. It looks like you both enjoy this kind of work. Does it inform your work with Wayne or your own work in any way to go into these different communities and meet with people who are clearly not dancers?
I mean, I find it very inspiring.
Yeah.
Very.
Because, we live quite a tight unit and we're always working, we're very busy. And for example, even yesterday at Destiny, the students were so raw, so passionate. It just reminds me and keeps me in check, really, That's why we dance and, to have that sense of passion and hunger. To be in a room like that, even as a professional and working, doing my job, it's just very fulfilling to be in a room like that with that energy.
Tell us a little bit about your own work as a choreographer in Italy, right?
Yeah, I work with a school in the south of Italy, Reggio. School in Napoli, and I'm like a guest teacher there. So they fly me over whenever I have time. And I do some teaching, work with students, and work for the end of year show.
It's a hard life for some.
So these are dance students in these programs in Italy?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
It's really, it's great.
Yeah.
And they're very passionate, very eager, and don't have the best facilities out there. But for me, it's just so nice to be in a room with people that are just so hungry. Wow.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
I can give them,
And Jessica, do you have any film projects coming up?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to talk about them, or is it a top secret?
No, I actually don't know whether I can officially talk about one that's for next year. But hopefully we've made 2 films with English National Ballet through their kind of creative learning engagement department in the last couple of years. I make them with my best friend Morgan, and we're hoping to do another one next year. Some small projects in between, hopefully. And it was actually shown. The last film that we did, Curing Albrecht, was shown at this film festival here earlier this year. No, it was last year.
Last year.
Yeah, which apparently had a great turnout and stuff. So Kathy, who organises our tours, kind of suddenly was emailing me like, Are you the same Jessica Wright that did this? No, you did all of that. So yeah, that was fun.
That's great.
But yeah.
Okay, top secret.
Can't say much
well,
yet.
We'll keep our ears open for that. For what's happening. So, have any questions come in online? Tell us about your own career paths, which are a little different. What is there such a thing as a typical dancer's career path? Probably not. But if so, what does that look like? You came to it, sounds like, from slightly different places.
Difficult to say if there's a typical career path. I think that maybe if you're looking to go into kind of purely classical company, there's more of a traditional way in, which is to kind of start younger and go to a full-time school and so on. Although even then, there's, there are always exceptions. I think if you're looking at doing more contemporary work, there are lots of ways in, and I think our company is actually a great example of different people starting at different ages, starting with different kinds of dance. I mean, I started with a bit of everything, I think. I did start young. I started at 4 and went to the local ballet school, did a bit of everything, and then went to professional school at 16. And then I was really lucky at about, I think I probably was about 21. There was a program, it doesn't exist anymore, an amazing program called the Dance Project, Dance Apprenticeship Network across Europe. And that was directed by Wayne, by William Forsyth, by Precious Cash, by Flamand. And it was a 2-year program where they took two people from each country. There were 17 different countries that they selected from in Europe. So it was this kind of amazing melting pot of young dancers, and we just were super lucky in terms of some people that had already completed a kind of more formal training, although even then a couple of people were coming from different point of view. We had everything from rep from those companies, new creations from those choreographers, anything that was interesting to them. So we ended up, I was living in Brussels, so I was kind of learning French, getting to learn about like dance and philosophy, dance and architecture. That's actually where we started having film courses as well. So it was really broad, and that was a unique opportunity. And obviously got me closer to Wayne and got to kind of learn more about him. Got me hooked, basically.
Yeah, definitely hooked.
Yeah.
And James, you had the gymnast background. Did you ever think about dancing when you were young?
I did a little bit of tap and jazz and modern when I was about 5 or 6. Okay. But then parents moved to Scotland, which there wasn't really any other kind of dance except like Highland dancing and stuff.
Why did you do the Highland?
I actually did. She took me to one class and was like, "Mum, I don't like this." And then, so and then I joined the gymnastics, and then I got into like the national team there. And so basically, my kind of teenage years, I guess, when you're talking about typical dancers training, I guess probably from young and through your teenage years, you're probably meant to be classical or at least at dance classes every day. But I had more of an athletic kind of swimming. I was about 17. That was sort of when I did my first sort of ballet class.
Okay, in Scotland? Or?
Yeah, in Scotland. So it wasn't sort of, Then my teacher was like, "Oh, you should go to London and audition for some schools." And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. And then I got in, and then from there I just had to work really hard to sort of catch up and pick up some of the vocabulary that I hadn't been grown up with. So that took me a while. I still struggle sometimes today with coordination and some things, but I guess, I worked really hard, and with the athletics, I guess it helped a bit with just the body and stuff.
Yeah.
But,
Is your sense of your physicality different as a gymnast and a dancer? Obviously yes, but are there similarities?
I had to work really hard to. Gymnastics is all about like being really solid, and so it took me a while. The great thing about Wayne is he's very open to all of our kind of signature backgrounds, and he really plays on movements, and even in the show, I'm in a handstand and say, so it's kind of,
I definitely wouldn't be doing that.
So I guess it's really nice. He's very what's the word? Really uses everyone's kind of expertise in a way to make the piece.
I was going to say that. I was going to say that as well. You know, it's kind of probably one of the, when you talk about kind of proper training or what's the best training, whatever. And you know, especially in a company like ours, I think that all those individual nuances of, you know, you can't get away from your history. It's kind of, you know, even if you're kind of actively rejecting some sort of training. I went through a whole thing like, I'm rejecting ballet. You know, you kind of can't help but show what that is, whether you're embracing or rejecting, and you know, you are the history of you've done up until that point, I suppose. But yeah, the nice thing with Wayne is that you're not kind of trying to force yourself into some mold where you feel like, okay, I wish you know, where you're kind of beating yourself up and saying, you know, if only my mum would have taken me to that school at a younger age, I would be as good as such and such, or I would be able to make that shape better, or whatever. But actually, your kind of individuality is being massively embraced, and it's kind of like, okay, so, you know, I think the retenivers, I know that I didn't mean to say I think the retenivers, there are retenivers, and I think that what's nice is each person has kind of a very individual style and signature that they bring, and that's something that's kind of, I think Wayne actively seeks that individual signature rather than wanting us to conform to one
movement language that everyone follows. Part of your autobiography, your individual stories.
Exactly.
We do have a question from someone who's logged in. So what percentage of your time is with the company as opposed to your own work? How do you balance that?
Constant juggling act.
Yeah.
It varies from year to year, doesn't it? In terms of how, it really depends on, so our first commitment is always to the company, and it really depends on how much work comes in a year. So we are technically freelance, even though we work for the company most of the time. But I think the company makes a commitment of, is it 35 weeks a year? I think it's about, they promise us at least 35 weeks a year. But then, you know, for a busy year it can be 45 weeks, and we're like, we need a holiday. So yeah, it really depends from year to year. And then, but we usually get given our schedule in advance. So it's like now we already know which weeks we have off during. We have a couple of weeks off in June. We have a week off in July, and we know that already, so we can kind of book our other projects around that.
Plan your life.
Yeah.
The rest of your life.
And I think it's a funny thing as well, because I think a lot of dancers, you know, dancers tend to join the company, especially a company like Wayne's, when they're younger, and they, you know, it's quite natural. You just want to be dancing all the time. That's what you want to be doing. You want to be using your body. You want to be, you know, working. And I think that quite often when dancers join, there's this kind of expectation that it's a full-time company, and then they turn up and they're like, oh, you know, how come we've got this time off, and what am I going to do? And I think it's really funny, because I think that people usually tend to enter with that mentality, and then over time start developing things on the side, whether it's the teaching practice or, you know, choreography, filmmaking, other passions, and, you know, holidays. And then you kind of basically, you know, which is really incredible, because then it actually means that you've got something built alongside of that it's preparing you for later in life.
For the next step.
Yeah.
All right, so we have another question, I think, is, that was the question I think you just answered. Are you employed year-round? And so 35 weeks out of the year, which is a lot of the year.
Yeah. Sometimes it's much more.
Yeah. But they are very, very good as a whole team, and they will understand, you know, the extra work that we do, and they let us know quite in advance what weeks we will have off. So we are planning something. We just need to have a discussion, you know, just double check with our directors and stuff, and then I don't find that process.
It rarely feels like a conflict.
Yeah.
And Wayne, you know,
it's very free and open conversation. You know.
Like I said before, Wayne's like very supportive of our individual work that we're doing alongside, and wherever possible, he'll facilitate that. And for us.
We have a question here about how you train on the road.
Well, luckily we're in San Francisco, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the world's best city for gyrotonics. I've never gyrotonics.
So please explain that.
Have you heard of gyrotonics?
I have not, but others may have.
Oh gosh, no, I can't do it justice. I'm not qualified. It's an amazing system. It's obviously most people have heard of Pilates, most people have heard of yoga, and it's a system that was uniquely created for dancers to recover from injury, but it's not only for injury prevention. It's kind of, the only way I can think of describing it is a combination of Pilates and yoga, but with a much more 3D circular element, so it translates to dancing. And there's an amazing Gyrotonic studio down at the Line Centre, where they have about, I don't know, there was, how many of them were in class today? At least 10 of the machines, these beautiful old wooden machines. And that's really, really rare. So in London, there's only a couple of studios, and even in the studios that exist, there's only maybe 1 or 2 machines. So you're looking at having a private class, which is difficult and expensive to maintain. So San Francisco's so lucky. Whenever we come here, we took class there this morning. But yeah, other than that, we do everything, don't we? We do yoga, we do sit-ups, we do in hotel rooms sometimes. We do a little bar here and there.
I think everyone has their own personal kind of cross-training. Always a challenge for us. We're travelling, so we've got the body, that's kind of stuck, and then you also have, the jet lag, depending on where you're coming from. So there's a lot that goes into it. Very personal. Yeah.
Stop-start's really hard on the body. Obviously, a typical company would be in training most of the year, and that's what we're used to when we're at home. But then when we come on tour, it's like we arrived on Sunday, we had Monday off, we were teaching yesterday, we're not performing until tomorrow. But it probably would feel pretty awful to just do nothing for 4 days and then turn up for a show. So we're all always kind of searching for our own thing. And I think the group motivates each other a lot as well. Like someone says, I'm going to this class, or you want to do sit-ups with me, or I'm going to do a yoga podcast, and we kind of,
it's very supportive. So a nice bath or a massage. That's one of the first things I look for.
There you go.
So I know some companies have like company class every day when they're on the road, but that's not part of McGregor.
We don't have a teacher with us.
I see.
But we often get teachers, so we have local teachers while we're here. If we're in places where we can't find somebody recommended locally, then one of us teaches.
So just a reminder to everybody following along that Autobiography with Company Wayne McGregor opens tomorrow night at Yerba Buena Center for the Arts Theater at 7:30 and runs through Saturday night with a family show on Saturday afternoon. I don't know if there are any more questions out there, but I have a final question as we wrap up, which is, in addition to gyrotonics, which is something new I learned about today, it sounds really fun actually, what are your favorite parts about coming to San Francisco since you've been here a few times now?
The weather.
Oh my God.
I'm joking.
I think we're all massive fans of San Francisco. It's like a big buzz for us coming here. I don't think there's anyone in the company that isn't excited to come here actually.
It's a great city.
Yeah.
Do you have favorite spots you go back to since you've been here a few times now?
Well, actually, on our day off, we hired some bikes and we cycled all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge. And I love nature. And, it's so beautiful here. And you've also got the city as well. So you've got kind of a nice mix of both things.
Yeah, we did that as well on our day off. We walked on the Presidio coastal walk. Absolutely stunning. Yeah, and then there's always new places to explore. I was exploring in Mission yesterday. I haven't been down that way before. And I don't know. It's actually really nice coming back to a place regularly as well, because you have little things. You have the breakfast place that you love. You have a good place for coffee. You kind of have a sense of knowing your way around the city. Yeah.
Well, it's been a great week for visiting, clearly, and better than home, I guess.
Yeah. We keep getting pictures of the snow, and we keep sending back pictures of the beach.
I bet everybody loves you. Well, thank you both so much for taking time to do this today for our patrons and supporters, and thank you everybody who logged in. Thank you again for all of your support, and we hope to see you at one of or more of these performances starting tomorrow night. So with that, anything else either of you want to say?
Yes. If you want to come more than once, every night is different.
Every night is different, so we'll see you every time. Yeah, sounds great. All right, Jessica and James, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you again on stage.
Yeah.
Okay, great.